Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or just starting out, Highlift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. So the new year is a great time to be planning, maybe looking at the challenges that you may be facing for 2022 and thinking about how we may overcome some of those challenges. So I'm really excited today with my guest, and this guy's a rock star. I mean, I've been kind of following him in some of the different publications here for a while. So I'm really excited to have Barrett on here. So Barrett Smith is my guest. He's the founder and CEO of Auto Damage Experts, and which in addition to providing appraisal and vehicle valuation services across the nation, he also does consulting and coaching for collision shops to help make them more effective and more profitable. Now, Barrett's a thought leader in the industry. You know, I see his stuff all over the place. He actually grew up in a family-owned collision center, for those of you that may not know him, and then after serving in the United States Air Force, thank you for your service, Barrett, he got into another collision shop. And then after selling that one, he got involved in the insurance industry. And he learned all the different aspects of the claims processes and claims practices. And then from there, he returned back to the collision industry, and he actually started a shop, grew this shop tremendously, where they got the title of what I guess they call a top shop. And he was able to utilize both his knowledge in the collision industry, the effective operational practices that he learned throughout these years, and also the practices of insurance companies to best manage that. So in 1993, he started Auto Damage Experts, which is recognized by legal professionals, local, state, governmental overseers, and corporations, as well as the individual consumers, as the kind of the go-to people to get assistance in the different challenges they face in that area. And he's a frequent contributor to a lot of the industry publications, sharing a lot of the best practices he's learned over his many years of experience. So Barrett's a straight shooter, and I love that about him because I'm a straight shooter. So I will forewarn everybody, if you're a little faint of heart, you might want to just skip this episode. But if you're ready to hear it like it is, I think you're going to be excited to hear from Barrett. So, hey, Barrett, welcome to Your Business, Your Life.
Hey, thank you, Matt. And before we start, just a little precursor. I'm not an attorney and I don't give legal advice. I'm no longer a licensed claims adjuster, so I'm not practicing law by any means. So anything I said is based on my experience, training, and knowledge in the industry.
Right.
And that's just the way we'll continue to carry on this morning, if that's all right with you.
That's perfect. I have to do the same thing. I mean, I kind of give tax guidance, but I always tell my clients, or legal guidance, but I always say, look, we need to coordinate with your tax or legal professional on these areas. So, but it's always good to have somebody who has the experience in those areas to help direct the conversations. So Anyway, so no, that's great. So Barrett, I was only able to really scratch the surface on your experience. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add that you feel would be of value to the audience.
We got such limited time, Matt.
Yep.
Basically, my goal in life, I love the collision repair industry. I hate what it has to go through. My goal in life when I had my shops, was to try to change the industry. Right. I realized over a long period of time that was impossible and that I wasn't going to change the industry. So I decided to focus on my collision repair facilities and just do what I could to help my community members. So what I do now is I pretty much encourage other shops to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're in such a rut, and they've been taught, as we discussed earlier,
right?
Most body shops are owned and run by ex-body men, not businessmen.
Right.
And women. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so, historically, what a shop would do is they would ask insurance company adjusters who are visiting, hey, what's the going labor rate? How much are people charging for this and that? So, they've been fed the information that they wanted to have been fed by the insurance industry. And they haven't departed from that. Still today, that still goes on. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of honest and ethical body shops out there doing less than ethical things in the name of survival. So the clients that I have are looking for they've tried everything they could try. They've waited for the government to step in. They waited for unions to step in and they just get tired of waiting. And most of my clients who called me in a desperate, their last gasping, step.
Right.
So,
right. And I'm hoping enough people listen, enough owners listen to this to be able to realize the more proactive you're able to be about these things, the easier it is. I mean, I'm sure that's your experience too.
what I find is that most of my clients at some point in time are going to wake up in the morning and go, why did I ever need Barrett? This is so simple.
Right.
Why did I ever need him? So it is simple. It's just that they got to think out of the box.
Right. And that's so true. I know you kind of label yourself as kind of a consultant and coach. And I think, that idea of coach it's an overused term. And I think we take it for granted, but I really think that all of us need some type of coach because, I've worked with a coach for the last 10 years. Who works specifically in my industry. And I'll tell you what, and it's kind of like you said, Barrett, a lot of these things are very simple, but when you're in the day-to-day throes of things, when you're in the battle, you can't see above the smoke. And sometimes you need that third party that's outside of the battle. Like the generals back in the Civil War, Revolutionary War days, they were always up on the hill. Why? Not that they didn't want to be in the battle, but they could see what was going on and then be able to direct the troops.
They could coach them, right? And, like we talked about, no Super Bowl is ever won by a mediocre coach. Right. There's a lot of consultants out there, and they, for various aspects of the business, mine is pretty much psychological. I have to physiologically change the mindset of the collision repair industry members so they can think out of the box and conduct their business appropriately.
Oh, exactly. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, kind of in your experience, because you're there in the trenches with your clients who are shop owners, what are you seeing are the biggest problems that they face, especially when it comes to continuing the business for multiple generations? Because that's one thing, it seems like the guys I run into are either looking to sell or have family members, usually kids, take over. So what do you see as the biggest problem that they face?
The biggest problem right now is shortage of available technicians.
Okay.
The business continues to grow and technology continues to evolve, but we're having less and less technicians available. The average technician, I think, is between 40 and 55 years old.
Right.
There's some young people, but there's a lot of the older ones are looking for a way out to exit. And it's simply because, falling back to what we first talked about, body men don't know how to run businesses.
Right.
And they don't know how to pay their people fairly. And they're taking advice from their we have a saying that says, never take advice on how to collect money from those that owe it to you. Right. So they're taking advice from the wrong people. They need to start conducting business like a business, make it attractive to younger people who can make, I've got shops paying their staff $100,000 a year as technicians. Yeah. So that can be, that could bring people to the door, and that's what we need.
Right. Yeah. I actually had a friend of mine whose son was a Jaguar technician, and he probably made, six figures doing that. But again, that's a very specialized niche. So I can see where that would be of benefit. So,
well, the thing is, collision repairs are repairing collision damaged automobiles involving electronics, the brakes, the performance, functions and engines and all those safety aspects that put people back on the road, but yet they're not paying their technicians consistent with that responsibility and the potential liabilities that evolve in this business. There's a tremendous amount of liability.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially now with electronic vehicles coming out, and now, government and the manufacturer starting to push those, guys are going to have to be retrained to be able to work on these type of vehicles.
Well, if you were going to ask me what was the best thing to happen to this industry, I would respond with that. The new technology,
right?
The OEMs getting involved in the repair management, making sure things are done properly.
Okay.
It's a perfect storm for the collision repair industry to step up, be recognized for their abilities, and start getting paid fairly for their services.
Oh, that's interesting. So, one thing that, and as I've been talking to a lot of different shop owners, and I'm kind of throwing a little curveball here, one of the biggest challenges they're telling me right now is managing their cash flow, especially trying to get parts. So that becomes a customer service issue. And then also getting paid by the insurance companies. How can a shop owner address that?
Well, first of all, realizing who they work for. They don't work for the insurance company, right, unless their business is geared for that, an MSO that is on direct repair programs or something like that. And, as we also discussed previously, one can't serve two masters. They're either going to have to look and see their community members, their neighbors as their true customer,
right,
or the insurance company. So to answer your question, the first thing they need to do is quit billing the insurance company and start billing their customer.
Yeah. That's, you know what, that's, I mean, again, I'm sure the shop owner that's listening to that says, boy, it's so simple, but we've always done it this way. Right. And, again, being that they're technicians and not always business people, that may be a hard conversation for them to have with the customer, because I know even in my industry, we were always known for getting paid either on commissions or assets under management, where a percentage fee. And when I moved to a retainer based model where now I was billing the customer, it was, at least my mindset was, boy, this is going to be harder, because, before they kind of knew they were paying fees, but they didn't really see them. And now all of a sudden they were seeing them. What are some things that the shop owner can do to make it more, I guess the way I want to put it, make it more comfortable for themselves to be able to have that conversation and to get the client to be able to take that billing directly?
First thing is for the shop owner to understand the benefits that are derived by doing this. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a little story here. I don't want to be long-winded, but it's okay. Here's what's historically happened. Customer comes in either with an insurance company or with an air estimate or not, says, hey, I need an estimate. Shop owner says, okay, no problem. And he writes the estimate, and he writes it for $4,500 and hands it to the customer. The customer says, okay, good. I'll submit this to my insurance company and let you know what I decide. So a couple days later, they come in. Here, my insurance company wrote this estimate. I want to go ahead and get it repaired. Well, the estimate's for $2,500, okay, right. which is consistent. So the customer leaves it, and they get him a rental car, and everything's great. Thanks for bringing your car in. See you later. And They go off into the darkness, And then the body shop and the adjusters, they scrabble back and forth and everything, and it ends up they're at 45, they're at 25. They end up at $3,000 for the repair.
Right.
And then the customer comes in, hey, everything looks great. You guys do a great job. I love you guys. We'll refer you to other people. And then they pay the bill. And about halfway home, the customer goes, wait a minute. They wrote me $4,500. The bill's $3,000. That shop tried to rip me off.
Uh-huh.
And see, shop owners don't think about that stuff. Right. Now, had they involved the customer in the process, as, hey, John, this is Bill over at ABC Collision. I want to let you know your adjuster was out here. We had a supplement, as I told you we would, and they wouldn't budge on the aftermarket parts. They don't want to use OEM parts on your car. And of course, we have a policy on that. You're going to have to sign a hold harmless or liability waiver. And but there's going to be a difference, but as far as the labor goes, we're doing everything we said we'd do, except for they didn't want to align the suspension. They didn't want to do a pre and post repair scan. And we explained that stuff early on, so you know what I'm talking about. So now the customer knows why there's a difference. And if the shop did everything they were supposed to do, they got the customer's approval to proceed in that direction. Right. Or empowered the customer with the proper knowledge, like these OEM repair procedures. They can empower them to go to the insurance company and say, wait a minute. My family rides in this car. I want it safe. And the OEM says I got to do a pre-scan and a post-scan and a four-wheel alignment. And, all these things. Well, now the insurance company has to deal directly with the consumer.
Right. Okay.
Right? Yep. And the body shop's not falling on the sword, because historically, body shops didn't want the customers to be exposed to the ugly truth. They just wanted it to be a very peaceful and passive situation, so they didn't somehow alarm or disarm, if you will, the customer and lose their business.
Right.
So we've been parties to the problem,
right.
And if you're not part of the solution, then you are part of the problem, right?
Isn't that the truth? We talked a lot about it, and I think, we work in very much the same way, where we like to have the hard conversations, and sometimes they're not the popular conversations. And I think, but if you're going to do the right thing, which personally, I believe that's what you should be doing, is always doing the right thing. Right. Sometimes you have to have those conversations.
Well, we call it managing the customer's expectations early on. From the moment they come in, I mean, even before they come in, you got to make sure your yellow page and your website are attractive and very professional. You want to make sure that as they approach your facility, it's nice, clean, well organized. It looks like cars are in production. They haven't been sitting around for months and months. So all of these things are first impressions. And people, the average consumer isn't experienced in collision repair. They don't know. They know one thing: their life has been seriously interrupted.
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking for a solution. So between the body shop and the insurance company, we should be well covered. And besides, that little gal Flo and the guy with the ostrich and all these things, and it's so easy that a caveman could do it. So what's the problem? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And so they're going into that shop looking for a solution, not for problems.
Right.
So the body shop needs to be that problem solver and say, yeah, we can fix your car. We give a lifetime warranty. We recommend OEM parts replacement. And of course, if you're the first one in and you educate and edify the customer, then you're probably going to manage their expectations properly. Then when should a problem arise, and you call them, now they're prepared. They know what OEM parts are. They know what pre-scan and post-scan is. They know what their safety, and the shop should explain to them about personal safety, performance of the automobile, reliability, and the vehicle's recovered value, because that's another thing that we do at ADE is we provide diminished value assessments, because a once damaged car never quite recovers all of its value. And if you're a victim of somebody else's negligence, in most states, except for Michigan, I believe, you're entitled to recover that. Okay. So that's a service we provide. And how I got into that service is kind of an interesting little thing, is because in my shop, I was constantly told, you're the only one that would ask for that. In fact, I had one insurance company tell me I was the only one in the universe that would ever ask for that. And it was things that are commonly given now, like back mass jams, remove adhesive pinstripe, remove the underlying remnant adhesive, and those kind of things. So I got thinking, I started doing the diminished value. So it opened up the door for me to get other vehicles that have been repaired by other shops, get their estimate, look at the vehicle, and make a determination if they were doing those things, or if they were getting paid for them. Right. Some were doing them, but not getting paid for them. Some didn't even address it. So that's how I really started out doing what I do.
Oh, isn't that's really fascinating? That's fascinating. Yeah. And I would think that in a lot of ways, again, with a lot of these shop owners not being business owners, I think, you made a comment, either they do something and don't get paid for it because it's just like, well, if I might ruffle some feathers, or they don't do the work and now they're doing things that are unethical. I guess where I'm going with this is, you recently had an article about start charging. What was it? I forget the whole title of the article, but anyway, but it's about how, these shop owners need to start charging for what they're doing.
And getting paid for it.
And getting paid. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing. So are there any other things that you think shop owners can be doing to be able to, basically provide, the best customer service, but then also make sure that they're getting compensated for that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, is to understand what they need to do and how to do it properly, and that takes specialized equipment nowadays. Right. And for the investment that now has to be done, as far as acquiring the information, in other words, the training, acquiring the equipment, going on websites to the OEM procedures to gain those all have costs associated with them. But few shops, if they're doing it, are charging for it. Okay. And that's not a cost of doing business. That's kind of a cost of going out of business, if you will. Right. So, they have to understand. And you'd mentioned that body technicians aren't business owners. What I meant earlier, and I want to make sure we clarify it, most body shops are run by ex-body men, not businessmen.
That's right.
Okay. So, but they can become businessmen. Right. I mean, they got the business, they have the industry. They just need to know how to best run their business so it's profitable, it'll sustain itself and all that. And then doing that is the training, knowledge, and experience needed to properly repair today's automobiles. Mm-hmm. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, somebody like myself is going to come along and know that. Because a lot of times I'll do a diminished value assessment and I'll call the body shop and say, hey, can you send me the OEM specs for the procedures, also a readout of the pre and post scan and the alignment specs and the frame measurements? And they're like, no, either that or I don't get any response at all. So, I have to rely upon what information I have. If I don't have it and I've asked for it, I have to presume there is none. And so,
Right.
therefore, the car probably wasn't repaired per a manufacturer's procedures, and therefore we have a problem.
Right. So is there any way to get the OEMs involved in that? In
They
that
are
process?
involved. I
They
mean,
are involved. Okay.
they're manufacturing the car. They're providing the resources to repair it properly because, understand, they have a vested interest.
Oh yeah.
That they want to have the car repaired properly, so the owner's ownership experience is good, is satisfactory. So they buy another Ford, General Motors, whatever it is.
Right.
It's been found out that like 60% of people who've been involved in an accident, after they get their car back, they're no longer happy. They're disenfranchised with that manufacturer. So
Right.
they go get another vehicle. So the manufacturers have a vested interest in trying to maintain that ownership pride and enjoyment and performance. They don't want to lose the customers.
Right.
Also, they do it with a tremendous amount of liability. OEMs have a tremendous amount of liability, and they want to make sure the car is restored properly to protect not only the consumer, but also themselves. But they'll be the first ones to step up, just like on the Honda Fit, with those people that were seriously burned in that car.
Right.
That, hey, this car wasn't repaired per our specifications, therefore we're not liable.
Wow. Yeah, that's
I think everybody understands the Chevrolet thing with the Honda Fit. $32 million in litigation, that the consumers were awarded. Most people know about that case.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not real familiar
John Eagle,
with that, so.
John Eagle collision, I think, is what it was. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, that, and that kind of leads me to, like, I look even in my industry, and, I've kind of developed this niche with collision shop owners. It just kind of happened naturally. And we're seeing more and more people in the financial service industry to go toward kind of niches. Do you see that happening in the collision repair industry, where a shop may decide, look, we're just going to do Euro luxury cars, or maybe even specifically, BMW, Lexus, or we're only going to do domestic trucks, things like that. Do you see that maybe happening in the industry?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen down the road, simply because oftentimes, like, Tesla requires specific procedures and equipment. Volvo requires specific procedures and equipment, and this equipment's expensive.
Oh yeah.
Even down to some of these rivet guns that came out when the aluminum first came out. It was cost prohibitive for a lot of shops, and then the technology changes, and then they're left with this archaic piece of equipment that's still brand new. So I could see where a shop would become specialized in Tesla, specialized in Saab, if you will.
Right.
And then maybe one that just specializes in domestic automobiles, Chevy, Toyota, Honda, and I call those domestic because now they've become somewhat domestic.
Exactly.
But your standard cars, and if you're in a small environment, small area, you might want to do research and find out how many Range Rovers are in the area and do that and add that specialty as you go.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting. I remember years ago when when I first got started the business, my branch manager always told me, he goes, you can determine the net worth of a community by the cars that are being driven around. So yeah. I'm in, West Central Pennsylvania. We're about 60 miles east of Pittsburgh, and it's, it's a blue collar industry. So there's lots of trucks. That's, probably the most vehicles you see out there are trucks.
Right.
But, you go into, a city like Pittsburgh, you might see more BMWs, Mercedes. You go to Philadelphia or New York, you might see even higher end Maserati, Ferraris, those type of things. So I think I like that idea of maybe researching what is my market and then maybe targeting it into that.
Yeah, they can delineate that information. There's sites and places you can go to find out how many Chevys are registered in a specific county or area. You just have to dive down into it. And, my recommendation for anybody that does that is to do General Motors, Ford, Chrysler first. If you want to get certified, those are the first three because they probably have the highest volume in their community.
Right. Okay.
And they probably take more of the generic tooling, not so much so specialized tooling as maybe a BMW or Tesla.
Right. Yeah, I was laughing. My son, when he came up for Thanksgiving, he lives down in DC, and he decided to rent a Tesla. And so, he drove up here and he got here and he was like, because the problem is we have in our town one charging station.
Yeah.
All right. And the problem is it's just a generic charging station. So he didn't have the
Adapters or
specific
whatever.
adapter for the Tesla. So he literally had, while he was here, had to order one on Amazon for 2-day delivery so that he could get home.
Oh, geez. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of issues like that with the infrastructure for electric vehicles, no doubt.
Right.
But it's coming. There's no denying it. It's going to come, and eventually there'll be nuclear or hydrogen
Yep.
operated vehicles. So the battery operator won't become obsolete in decades ahead.
Exactly.
That's the one thing about the collision repair industry. Changes. The only thing that stays constant is change.
Right. And that's actually, it's funny. I think, and I think this is really in any business. Some owners look at that as a threat, but then others look at it as an opportunity. Like I always look at that as an opportunity. We've got to be evolving all the time.
Well, if you're not, here's what I tell my clients: if you're not with the program, you need to get out. Back in the day when we went from full frames and unibodies came in, like in the '60s, the Mustang and the Camaros, they were like one of the first sub unibody type cars. And Volvo, of course, was one of the first. But if you didn't evolve and get your frame machine and three-dimensional measuring system, then you were archaic, and and they didn't last. You had to make that investment, and it was, $45,000-$60,000 frame machine and measuring system.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have it in order to stay viable and to avoid the potential liabilities. I mean, we've all seen horrors in this business. I've seen where shops had welded angle iron onto the bottom of a rail to keep it straight,
Wow.
and then in a subsequent accident, the rail went through the firewall. So,
Oh boy.
And there's still stuff like that going on. People aren't pre-scanning. They don't know if there's any DTCs, codes thrown from first of all, they don't know. And this is what insurance companies need to understand, that don't want to pay for pre-scan. There may have been previous codes already announced in the automobile. Okay.
Right.
And they need to know that so they can say, well, we're not responsible for that particular situation because it was there before, pre-existing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of advantages if people would just use the technology and use it appropriately.
I got it. No, that makes complete sense. So, one thing I wanted to ask you, and we talked a lot about this idea of customer service, because, it seems to me, and at least the research that I've done is that, especially for the independent shop owner that wants to stay independent, they really only have two options. Either you try to do what you said before, we discount or we don't charge for stuff, that's only sustainable for so long, or they provide superior customer service. So what are some of the other things, we talked about, doing the additional work and charging for it, as part of doing what's right for the customer. What are some other things that they can provide?
Well, they need to get their pricing structures up to date.
Okay.
I mean, insurance companies raise their pricing consistently, maybe twice biannually, because they're keeping track. They got their fingers on the pulse. They know what their costs are. And so they adjust their pricing. Okay. Shops haven't, and the insurance companies continue to tell them what the going price is. And as long as shops take advice from the people that owe the money, they're going to continue to be underpaid, obviously. Right. So okay. They need to get with the program so they can be not only sustainable, but profitable.
Right.
Because you have to reinvest. You have to make money to make money, and so that's the number one thing. The other thing is make a decision who you're going to serve. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be, like an MSO or a heavy DRP and rely upon the insurance company to feed you, which is fine, except for the fact that if they pull it because you've made a mistake or you didn't pre-scan or you didn't do something right, now you're getting litigated against. The insurance company just drop you like a hot rock, and then you have no reputation to rely upon.
Right.
Okay. Because you relied upon their feeding you and then doing substandard work and not getting much of a good, building a good reputation. Or you can become a truly independent shop, charge what's fair and reasonable in your marketplace, provide the best possible service to your customer, encourage them to assert their rights for proper recovery from the insurance company, whether it be their own or be a third party. And everybody should be happy. The customer gets what they're entitled, the shop gets what they're entitled, and the insurance company pays what they're supposed to.
Right. Hey, that's what we pay premiums for, right?
It's the way it should be. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
But if the consumer is not made aware of when somebody stumbles and falls, if an insurance company doesn't step up and do what they're supposed to do, the only person that's going to know that is the body shop, and they need to let the customer know or not.
Right. Oh, exactly. Exactly. So,
You
well,
know,
Barrett, I mean, we could go on and on. And actually, I'd probably like, if you're open to it, maybe have you on later in the year where we can talk maybe more in depth about one of these specific topics. Cause I know we just kind of gave a top view on a lot of this stuff. If you're open to that.
yeah, and maybe your readers or listeners, or watchers, or whatever you call them, your audience, maybe they'll submit some questions that they'd like me to respond to, and I'd be happy to do that.
That's great. That's great. And you can submit any questions to Matt at highliftfin.com. And then I can make sure I get those to Barrett, and we can actually put together a question and answer for anybody who has those things. I think that would be awesome.
Also, I write an article with Body Shop Business Magazine once a month. It's called Ask the Expert.
Right.
And I solicit questions from body shops or consumers. Here's the situation. What do you think I should do? And I'll be happy to respond to those.
That's great. That's great. So any other final thoughts you want to leave the audience, how they find you and whatever you want to share?
Well, they can go, body shops specifically, go to our website at www.autodamageexperts.com. We service everybody. I want to make that clear. I provide service to the community, consumers, insurance companies, legal professionals. I've been engaged by the courts as an expert testimony, and body shops, of course. But they can go there and click on above. It'll say collision repair consulting, and they can go to that page and read more about it, and there's testimonials in there from other shops and stuff too.
Right.
But I welcome any questions, and they can go to that website and get in touch with me, or email me directly at Barrett, that's Barrett at autodamageexperts.com.
Right. And we'll have all of that in the show notes. So
good.
Very easy to access. So anyway, but Barrett, I really appreciate you being on. I think, like I said, we could go on and on about this stuff. And I think you're just a wealth of knowledge. So I appreciate what you're doing for the industry. The one thing I really like about this industry is that the people who are in it are passionate about it.
They are. And they're craftsmen and artisans, and they just happen to have to take care of business.
Yep, exactly. So thank you for being on. The last thank you goes out to you, the listener. Thank you for listening to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. If you've not subscribed to the podcast, please click on the subscribe button below. That way, when a new episode comes out, it'll download directly to your device. And it also makes it very easy to share it with your friends, family, or your colleagues, anybody you think might benefit from this. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to give us a 5-star review. We would really appreciate that. That helps us to get more of this great content and people like the information that Barrett provided out to more people. So again, I just want to thank you for listening today. Have a great day and take care, and God bless. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of High Lift Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, DBA High Lift Financial, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state security authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.